Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Field McConnell in the house, everybody. So if you have a question for Field, please feel free to raise your hand and I will unmute your mic at some point in this podcast. Or if you want to write your question underneath his logo on the wall, please feel free to do so and I will read them as well. Also, today Field is going to be discussing a little bit more on 9/11. Tucker Carlson had a interview with I think it was Kurt Weldon. So if you guys hadn't seen that, please check it out. It is on the wall. It's a very good interview, and it gives a lot of great information. And remember, Fields, is the one that knows a lot about the 9/11. So if you guys have questions, please don't be afraid to ask. Also, to everybody, please be careful who you follow, what you're listening to out there. A lot of stuff going on. People are being exposed, and it's just crazy out there. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's because I genuinely care about you guys. I don't want you to get hurt. Don't want you to be misled. There's a lot of that going on right now as we speak. Also, to everybody, if you come in late to the podcast, please feel free to follow the podcast on the social medias or the podcast hosts. We are being listened to in over 100 countries, so we are making some more noise, everybody. Podcast hosts are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, and Amazon Music. Social medias are all verified, but three, and those three are True Social, YouTube, and TikTok. YouTube's a new channel, so that might be a little bit. True Social, I've been waiting for a while. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe I need to go double check and see if I did it right. And then TikTok, that's just I don't really get on that one a lot, but go check it out. I try to do some little short videos, kind of give you guys updates of the show lineups, just so you guys can, see that I am real too. That's more of a video than audio. So check those out. And those are Jenny Jareed Facebook, at Jenny underscore Jareed X, at J Jareed Rumble, at J Jareed Instagram, at J Jareed True Social, The Revival of America right here on Telegram, The Revival of America YouTube, and at the official J Jareed over on TikTok. Also, to everybody, if you have a story or a journey you would like to tell, please reach out to me at the Revival of America at yahoo.com. It's your voices, your stories that matter, and it's going to help shape the new world we are walking into. And then last but certainly not least, everybody, if you have not signed up for the newsletter, it is free. Go do that at therevivalofamerica.com. And this way you'll get the latest updates on the podcast as well as the weekly show lineup. So do that. It is free. And then it is the website's a work in progress. It's kind of one of those things that I'm so busy doing other stuff that's kind of last on my list. But at least if you do the newsletter, we still update those pretty much every Sunday. Sometimes I do forget, but pretty much we're on top of that. So bear with us, everybody, with the website, because again, like I said, it is a work in progress. And then also to everybody, if you hear a little bit of an echo here on the podcast these next few days until I get my studio up and going, bear with me. I apologize, but I'm new here to my place and there's not much up on the walls. So with that, everybody, we'll wait for Mr. Fields and some more people to get in here, and then we will get started. Hang in there, everybody. Hello, Field. I see you're in the house. I don't know why you come in muted. You shouldn't, but you're here. Hello.
Hello, how are you, Jenny?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Oh, I couldn't be better unless I was younger, but I'm 75, and I think today's show is going to be really monumental. And I don't know what you think about today's show. I'm interested for your opinion, but I think Tucker Carlson and former congressional um, whatever he was, Kurt Weldon, I think they just picked the scab of 9/11, and I don't think the scab is going to recover. I think the perpetrators of 9/11, the ones that have not been executed, anybody else that's participated on 9/11 is going to get exposed, and they're going to, get their just treatment because well, do you mind if I just express 9/11 in one statement?
Yeah, go ahead, Field.
Yeah. 9/11 was blamed on the Muslims by the United States deep state liars. And the deep state liars included, from top to bottom, they included George H.W. Bush, John McCain, my own sister, Christine Marcy, and that's Christine with a K, Kristine, Marcy, Marcy, and Hillary Clinton. And those people vilified Muslims and they blamed Islamists, and there's no truth to that. 9/11 was done by uh, some real. I'm having a hard time being polite, and I apologize. I won't be impolite. I think that ruins the message. But the people that did 9/11 were all insiders of the United States shadow government, and they thought they'd never get caught. Well, they're absolutely wrong. They've all gotten caught. Many of them have already been executed, and all of them will be executed for trying to do what they tried to do. But they didn't do it very well. And when I say they, who are they? Well, George H.W. Bush, John McCain, my sister Christine Marcy, and Hillary Rodham, or whatever her name is, Rodham, um, Rockefeller. She's not a Clinton. Bill Clinton is not a Clinton. He's a liar. His name is William Jefferson Rockefeller. And why is it that after 24 years of waiting, 9/11 has not been prosecuted? Thank God, literally, thank God, with a capital G-O-D, that Tucker Carlson interviewed former Congressman Kurt Weldon, and that interview just took place on Monday of this week. And I think that single interview is going to reopen 9/11, and I am very optimistic that the White Hats in the Trump administration might reach out to me and ask me if I'd be willing to testify. And if they do reach out to me, I would say, absolutely, I'll testify. And there is not one human in the world who can prove me wrong. That's a pretty powerful statement, isn't it, Jenny?
Yes, that's very, very powerful. So let's talk real briefly. Why don't you tell the audience, regarding this Tucker Carlson interview with Kurt Weldon? I know I heard about 40 minutes of it, so apparently I heard all the good stuff. So, but why don't you talk to the audience for those that haven't heard it? And everybody, again, it is at the bottom of the wall. If you haven't listened to it, it's a great listen to. Like I said, I listened to the first 45 minutes of it. I think it's about an hour and 20 minutes. So check it out. But Field, can you kind of talk to them a little bit about it? And then for those that don't know, let them know about, your tie-in with the 9/11 and how you were the original whistleblower for it.
Okay, let's start with original whistleblower. On the morning of 9/11, even though I was an airline pilot, I was driving a school bus on that day in a volunteer capacity. I wasn't getting paid. I was doing it to help the school bus owners. And I was listening to the AM radio in the school bus, and I heard that an aircraft had hit one of the World Trade Centers. And then a couple of minutes later, I heard another aircraft had hit the World Trade Centers. So I drove the school bus back to where it got parked, and I hopped in my car and I drove home and I turned my TV on and I watched what was reported by the mainstream media as to be, according to the mainstream media, they were talking about these aircraft hitting World Trade One and World Trade Two, and not very long after, they talked about an airliner hitting the Pentagon, and it was all lies. LIES. How did I know that? Because I recognized the technology and the tactics that were being used by the deep state insiders of America to attack America. And the bottom line in this discussion is one of the deep state traitors, TRAITORS, one of the deep state traitors was my only sibling and my sister, and her name was, past tense, Christine with a K, Kristine, Christine Marcy, Marcy. And Christine Marcy, my own sister, called me in December of 1988 when she was the director of the U.S. Customs Service, which included Con Air, pardon me, and Con Air was actually called JPATS, Justice Prisoner Air Transportation System, JPAL. Let me do this again, JPATS. And my sister called me in December of 1988 and said, Field, this is your sister, and I need your help. To which I very quickly dismissed her. I said, how can you need my help? I'm a private citizen, and you're a member of the administration. And she said, yes, but you fly airliners. And I said, yeah, I do. I was an airline pilot then, and I'd been well, I guess in 1988, I was still a military fighter interceptor pilot. And so I understood how 9/11 could be orchestrated if some bad people, like my sister, if they wanted to cause a panic in America, I understood how they can do it. But I didn't have that mindset then. I still was deceived by my own sister, thinking she was a good servant of the United States government, which she was not. She's a traitor and a child trafficker. Okay, enough about that. I said, okay, well, Chris, what is it you think I can do for you? And she said, well, I'm in charge of the JPATS, which is Con Air, which means the U.S. Marshal Service had a transportation apparatus that could take passengers, meaning prisoners, federal prisoners, from the state of Hawaii to the mainland. And I said to her, I said, I don't know what you're talking about, Chris, because I fly for Northwest Airlines and we haul prisoners all the time from Hawaii to the US. So what's the problem? And she said, the problem is that the United States government is no longer going to allow federal prisoners to fly on Part 121, and I'll say that again, Part 121 airlines. And anybody that's listening that doesn't know what Part 121 is, you can Google it. Just put in Part 121 airlines. But I said, we, meaning we in the airline industry, we haul prisoners every day. It's a routine deal. And she said, yeah, but they're changing the rules and they're not going to allow us to haul federal prisoners on airline flights. And I said, well, why is that? And she said, because the federal prisoners have to have shackles on their ankles and handcuffs, and it would delay their evacuation if there was an aircraft emergency. And I said, okay, well, I'm not aware of that. And I was not aware of it. It hadn't happened yet. But I said, if that's your only problem, I've got your solution. And I told her back in December of 1988, all you have to do is call this individual. I gave my sister, Christine Marcy, the name of the individual at Northwest Airlines that was he was in charge of distributing what Northwest considered obsolete airliners, which specifically were DC 9 30s and 727 100s. And I said, Chris, all you have to do is call this gentleman at Northwest, and he can provide you with several aircraft which would be suitable for hauling prisoners from Hawaii to the mainland, meaning California. And so I gave her the name, the email address, the phone number, and the fax number. And I said, call him up and you can mention my name if you want. You don't have to, but he would know who I am. And he would therefore understand how you got his name. And, you and he can work out a deal where the U.S. Marshal Service could get one or two airliners that are capable of going nonstop between Honolulu and the West Coast. And she said, yeah, okay, but what about the prisoners? If they do not have shackles and they don't have handcuffs, what's going to prevent them from charging the cockpit and taking control of the airplane? And I told my sister in December of 1988, I said, there is a device called the Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot. And if that's installed, and it's not installed now in December of 1988, but if the U.S. Marshal Service wanted to install it in the aircraft, the DC 9 30s with dash 15 engines, which means, and also long range tanks. I said, you can put it in a DC 9 30 and you can put it in a 727 100. And then you'd have no problem flying your prisoners from the courts in the state of Hawaii back to the United States jurisdiction, where they could go into the federal prison system. And I said that I told my sister, who was ignorant of airline issues, which that's not a criticism of her. She had a job at the U.S. government of being in charge of the U.S. Marshal Service, which included JPATS, and also what is called ConAir, which means convict airlines. I said, and those, once you install the Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot, no human can interfere with the progress of the flight, because the flight will proceed under its flight plan loaded into the BUAP, Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot, and nobody, good or bad, can take control of the aircraft until it lands safely at the destination airport. Okay, that was 1988, December of 88. Now, fast forward to 9/11 of 2001, that's exactly what happened on 9/11. The aircraft that Americans and people around the world thought were being flown into iconic buildings, World Trade One, World Trade Two, the Pentagon, and it would have been the U.S. Senate building, where the Senate and Congress were both assembled that day. And that flight was United 93, which did not get to the target. And so they had to destroy United 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, which they did, which means the real United 93, which was flown by Captain Jason Dahl, DAHL, um, that's cold-blooded, premeditated murder. And I don't think that's funny. I really don't. It offends me as an airline pilot and a retired military pilot. I don't like airliners or any aircraft being used to kill innocent parties, but they did. And as far as the other flights on 9/11, those flight numbers were American 11, American 77, United 175, and the one I just talked about, United 93, which was taken down over Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Let's go back to American 77. Um, American 77 took off from Washington, D.C.'s National Airport, I believe. That's a long time ago, and I'm old. I could be one airport off, but there's only two airports in Washington, D.C. One, Washington Reagan, which is called National, or one would be Dulles, Dulles. Uh, but American 77, on that day in history, 9/11 of '01, the captain of American 77 was a college classmate of mine at the United States Naval Academy, class of 1971, and his name was Francis Charles, and his nickname was Chick, Chic, Burlingame. And American 77 did not strike the Pentagon, even though the media, meaning the liars in the mainstream media, who will be exposed and may well be executed, they've been saying that American 77 hit the Pentagon and flew into the office of the Naval Command Center. And the guy that was there was a Navy captain who was from Cape Cod, and I'm sort of trying to remember his name. It'll come to me, but his nickname was on the license plates of his Porsche because, and I think it was Fish, Fish, but he was a fisherman. He was from Cape Cod. He liked to walk out into the surf and, cast his fishing a, a bait, whatever it was, and tried to catch some fish. He was a sportsman and he was a bachelor, and he died at the Naval Command Center on the morning of 9/11 when something, and I'm going to tell you what the something was. And if the United States government today, under Donald John Trump, doesn't like my recall, I'd be very surprised. I think Donald John Trump and his military white hats consider my recall and my willingness to speak about 9/11. I think they appreciate people such as myself, which are called whistleblowers. But the uh, the object that hit the Pentagon was not an American 757. It was a privately owned A3 Sky Warrior, SKY space WARRIOR, and the privately owned A3 Sky Warrior was owned by a corporation that was involved in the attack of 9/11. And the Muslims and the Islamists had nothing to do with it. And when it comes to that statement, there is a photograph of me that's available on the internet of me standing in front of Iran Air Force One. In other words, the equivalent to Air Force One in the US, but for the nation of Iran. And I brokered a deal, and this is me personally, I'm just a private citizen. I have no authority, I have no credentials other than my driver's license, my pilot license, my passport. But I communicated with the president of Iran on a date in April of 2009. And I said, you have a prisoner in your system right now in Iran, and her name is Roxana, Roxana, Saberi, Saberi. And I said, not only is she innocent because your country thinks she's a spy, I said, I know her because I used to live in Fargo, North Dakota, and I watched KVRR TV every night for the 9 o'clock news, and she was the anchor of the 9 o'clock news. And I said, Roxana Saberi is not a spy. And I also gave them more details of why I said she wasn't a spy. And I said, if you will release her and allow her to go home to Fargo, North Dakota, I will take custody of her and I will escort her from Iran all the way back to Fargo. And that sort of caused a little interesting communication going back and forth between Iran and the American embassy. And pretty soon, Roxana Saberi was released and she went back to Fargo. And then from there, she got a job with the media in New York City. So my connection to 9/11 is pretty vast, VAST, and my recall at age 75 is pretty good, and my speaking ability is fairly articulate, and I will not be stopped. And that's why I'm so lucky and so happy and so blessed. That's with a capital B, Lessed. I'm blessed that Tucker Carlson and Representative Kurt Weldon have reopened 9/11 because, from my perspective as an airline pilot and a fighter interceptor pilot, and by the way, the significance when I say fighter interceptor, that is the specific type of a fighter aircraft that can be scrambled if there's any radar track coming in to North America, whether it's Canada or the US. If there's a radar track coming in that's unidentified, then supersonic fighter aircraft are dispatched regardless of the weather and regardless of anything else. It's like no rules. Go out and take a look at what this radar track is, and if necessary, if it appears hostile, shoot it down. And that's what I used to do. Whoop-de-doo, who cares? Now I'm old. But the story of 9/11 has not changed. And so, Jenny, I'm going to give you a chance now. Don't you think that after 24 years of waiting for 9/11 to be adjudicated, why is it that the United States government has not done so? And before you answer, and I'm going to ask you to answer, but I'm going to tell you that it's my opinion that in addition to Tucker Carlson and Kurt Weldon, I think that Donald John Trump, the president, is going to declassify 9/11, and then maybe my witness value, which is already known to Donald John Trump and his wife Melania, and I'll leave that for another day. They know who I am. They know what I know. They know how well I know it. And I think they would love to have me in court to prosecute the people that did 9/11. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Field. That was very, very good, everybody. So I hope you guys took a lot of notes on this. Because like Field said, he's the original whistleblower on this, and he knows a lot. I mean, his sister was Christine Marcy. I mean, she was tied to George Bush and Hillary. So, Field, regarding the Tucker Carlson interview that he had with Kurt Weldon, can you kind of pick out some of the things that you think that are highlighted in there that you would like to talk to the audience about in regards to how they threatened his daughter, how kind of all this went down for Kurt Weldon? Because if you listen to that interview, that he
Yep.
was very passionate and pretty upset in that interview with Tucker Carlson, as he should be. So maybe point out some highlights in that video for the audience, because if they haven't seen it, I think it's very recommended that you do. But here in the meantime, Phil can kind of talk to you a little bit about it. So go ahead, Phil.
Well, Kurt Weldon was a congressman from Pennsylvania, and he was in a position to get elevated to a higher cabinet position. And the cabinet position was going to be involving intelligence and national defense. And the FBI, and let's stop right there. Who was it that started the FBI? I don't think anybody in your audience knows, so I will tell them. The Rockefeller family. The FBI was established to be the Rockefeller family's private police force, and they were not legit. They had authority, but it was not legitimate authority, and they were not good people. They controlled the narratives of some of the most egregious crimes in the history of the United States of America, and they controlled 9/11. And there was a 9/11 commission, which was a big joke, and I'm not amused. I'm in fact, I'm an aggressive whistleblower, and the woman, that's woman, WOMAN, the woman that sat on top of the 9/11 commission and suppressed the truth. And if she doesn't like this, I'm not going to use any foul language today, Jenny, because I see how many listeners you have just in this chat room, and I can imagine how many listeners you have around the world. And I'm not going to devaluate your interview of me, but the female, the woman that sat on top of the 9/11 commission, her name was Jamie, Jamie Gorelick, Gorlick, which I find rather fitting. Gorlick. Uh, she is an absolute liar. She suppressed the truth of 9/11. She was a peer, PEER, of my sister, Christine Marcy, at the United States Department of Justice, and she was a crook. And if she doesn't like my mouth, that's okay. Come and get me. My name is Field, FIELD, McConnell, MCCONNELL. And I'll just throw in another piece of evidence. Beyond my name, Field McConnell, put in USMC, which stands for United States Marine Corps, and then put in my number 0116513. So, Jenny, I think that proves pretty much to anyone I'm not trying to conceal my identity. I'm trying to expose the people involved in the lies of 9/11. And one of the reasons, not that I need more than one reason, but the the captain of Flight American 77, and I mentioned his name earlier, Francis Charles Chick Burlingame, he was murdered and his aircraft did not hit the Pentagon. His aircraft was remotely controlled by the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, and it was flown to Whiskey 386 Alpha airspace. The entry point was 60 miles east of Norfolk, Virginia, and the controller, the military controller on that day in history, 9/11 of 01, his call sign, get a load of this, giant killer. Oh, okay, how lovely. Giant killer. Well, these people that did 9/11, they killed the crew and the passengers of American 77, American 11, and United 175. Pardon my coughing. There's another cough. I just swallowed some saliva the wrong because I get so passionate about 9/11 and I get so frustrated because I've been telling the truth of 9/11 since the morning it happened. And yet the United States government, pre-Trump, has done nothing about it. Well, we're not in a pre-Trump environment any longer. And President Donald John Trump has claimed he's going to declassify 9/11. And when he does, I'm volunteering because I know this show that I'm doing with you, the podcast, Jenny. I know that the military white hats will be reviewing this, and they will know that I, Field McConnell, am willing to testify with real-time data that is already been proved many times over to be accurate. And if they want to make 9/11 a much swifter delivery of justice, if they get me to come testify, I can take on, I know this sounds boastful, and I don't mean it that way. I don't believe there's anyone in the world that can defeat me or discredit me in a United States constitutional court. We are no longer in the Admiralty Court or the Maritime Court environment. We are now, since the 1st of October of 2024, in the jurisdiction of the constitutional courts. And I, at my age, 75, I am still alert. I am, more importantly, informed. And I've got a track record of reporting on 9/11 for the last 24 years. And am I frustrated that it's still an open question? Yes, I am. Am I willing to participate in the remedy, which I know is coming? Yes, I know it's coming. And I am willing to be a witness that nobody can discredit. And that sounds sort of boastful. It's not boastful, it's the truth. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Field. And before we get into questions, everybody, so if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand, or you can write it in the comments underneath the logo over there. It says Field McConnell on the wall. But if you can, tie a little bit of the interview with Tucker Carlson in with Kurt Weldon, and maybe point out some of the important things that you noticed in regards to like his daughter being threatened and because he was very passionate, very upset, as he should have been in that interview. But for those that didn't get to listen to it, like I said, everybody's on the wall, but maybe you can just give us a little short synopsis of it.
Well, I
I,
think
I know you were very
Tucker,
excited.
go ahead. Go ahead, Jenny.
I know you were very excited about that interview when you saw it from Tucker Carlson.
Yes, and I contacted you on the day I saw it, and I said, I think the time is right for us to discuss this, and the time is today, Friday, the 18th of April. And Tucker Carlson is well respected, and I presume that he is more widely well respected by conservative people in America. But Kurt Weldon is respected because he was a long term congressman and he had the nerve. Notice I didn't say another word, I said nerve. He had the nerve to sort of reopen 9/11. And one of the reasons he did is because his own daughter was threatened by the FBI. You know, they threatened her life. And if anybody in the FBI wants to make an issue of that, my name is FIELD MCCONNELL. And the FBI should not, in the pre Cash Patel environment, they should not be threatening the lives of innocent young ladies just because their father was well informed of 9/11. Well, here I come now as a witness, and I actually have three daughters. I have one son. I've got 10 grandchildren. And if anybody wants to threaten my progeny, I think that's what it's called, people that are coming, from my bloodlines, uh, you can threaten me all you want, and it's going to blow up in your face because as Jenny said, I am the original whistleblower of 9/11. I blew the whistle on the morning of 9/11, and I've been blowing the whistle ever since. And yet, the government of the United States of America has been ignoring me, ignoring Kurt Weldon, ignoring Tucker Carlson, but they're not going to be ignoring this anymore. It's like a tsunami, which is a giant wave. TSUNAMI. There is a tsunami of truth available. And if Kurt Weldon and Tucker, well, first of all, I don't think you know this, Jenny, so I'll tell you and your audience. The Tucker Carlson and Kurt Weldon YouTube is not a standalone YouTube. They're going to be doing a series. So let me stop right there. Jenny, did you know that Kurt Weldon and Tucker Carlson are going to be doing more um, YouTube things regarding 9/11? Did you know that before this very moment in time?
You did tell me this the other day, so I did not know it until you told me the other day. But I think it's awesome. But I do think that we need to get you out there, like we spoke about, speaking about it more often because again, you are the original whistleblower on it. So yeah, I think it's awesome. It's way overdue. This should have happened a long time ago. But a lot of people are going to be really pissed off when they find out the truth about 9/11. There were never any planes, and that they have lost loved ones to these evil people's greed and just hatefulness of America. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm glad that it's being talked about. It's way overdue.
Yeah, and I'm going to continue to talk until I'm dead. Now, I want to tell you something. You might know it already, Jenny, but if you know it, you probably know it because of me. But do you know where all of the rubble from the 9/11, the Twin Towers that disintegrated, do you know where all of the rubble was taken to be disposed of?
Ah, you would ask me that. Tell us, Field.
Okay, no, I'm, whenever I ask you a question, I'm not trying to be a snob. It's always a straight question. If I ask Jenny a question, it's a straight question because I talk about this stuff all the time. But all of the rubble of both Twin Towers, uh, World Trade Center 1 and World Trade Center 2, all of the rubble, including the 2,998 victims, the human bodies, all of that stuff was loaded onto dump trucks and taken. I'm going to be very, very calm, which is hard for me, but I'm going to be calm and say all of the rubble was taken by dump trucks to a place called Fresh Kills Landfill. And there's a beautiful picture that I wish I had in my custody, and I don't, but I can find it, or anyone listening can help me find it. There is a beautiful picture of a little girl about 4 years old holding up a sign at Fresh Kills. And it's hard for me to talk about this without crying because it's so horrendous. But this little girl was holding up a sign that says, "My daddy is not garbage." And how does that not make people, regardless of what country you're in, get agitated and animated? A little girl holds up a sign saying, "My daddy is not garbage." And yet her daddy was in one of those dump trucks, and those dump trucks were tracked by GPS. And if any of the dump truck drivers went off the prescribed route, they would have been stopped by the police and arrested. That's how much America tried to lie about 9/11. And you know what? I'm an American, and I served the United States military for 26 years. And I'm still an American today, but I'm not a proud American. I'm not an ill informed American. I'm an American who knows 9/11 from A to Z. And I'm not going to use any strong language, I hope. I promise I won't, Jenny. But it's really hard for me as a United States Marine not to speak like a United States Marine. But I also happen to be a Christian. And so I'm going to let the Christian side overrule the Marine Corps side. And I'm just going to say it is so late in the game. Why has 9/11 not been remedied and expressed and explained to the world? Because 9/11 was the opportunity, they thought. Who's they? The bad guys, the deep state of America, the globalist, maybe the UK fake royals, and the the Vatican Jesuits. Excuse me, I had that backwards. But it's long overdue for the truth to come out. And if nobody else has the nerve to speak the truth into a camera with Tucker Carlson or Kurt Weldon, I do. I'm articulate. I've known this stuff since the day it happened. And how did I know this stuff? Is I told my sister, Christine Marcy, about the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. And I told her that that would make the physical human hijacking of an airliner impossible. So, what did they do on 9/11? They hijacked American 11, American 77, United 175, and United 93. And all four of those airliners were destroyed. Three of them were destroyed in Whiskey 386 Alpha airspace down by Norfolk, Virginia. The fourth one, which was flown by Captain Jason Dahl, United 93, it was too late to hit the target, which was the U.S. Senate Capitol Rotunda. I think that's what it's called. But the Senate and the Congress, they were in there, and the people, including my own sister and Hillary Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and John McCain, they wanted to wipe out the elected government of the United States, and they did not get it done because United 93 never struck the target. And United 93, now I'm going to use some military aviation language.
Let her rip,
You know,
potato chip.
oh, here it comes. And people aren't going to like this if they were involved in 9/11. There were two F-15s from Otis Air National Guard Base in Massachusetts, and there was one F-16 from the Fargo Air National Guard Base where I used to fly F-16s, and the two F-15s and the F-16 were Hawking, Hawking. So let me tell your listeners in 100 countries what Hawking means. It means simply finding the target aircraft, in this case United 93, and staying in a position where you can see it physically, even if any legitimate pilots on United 93 could not see you due to the altitude difference. And the F-15s and the single F-16 all had weapons, and those weapons would have been AIM-7 Sparrow radar missiles and AIM-9 heat heat missiles, or IR, it's the infrared. Uh, yeah, United 93 was going to be destroyed one way or the other. And God bless the people in responsible positions on 9/11 not to ask the F 15s from Cape Cod or the F 16 from Fargo to shoot it down because they could have done it easily. And I used to do that for a living. And I'm starting to cry now because I'm thinking about how kind God is. God's been very kind to me because even though I flew for a long time with the potential and the authority to shoot down an aircraft, I never had to do that. And I'm thankful because I would have been shooting down someone that was no different than me. They were serving their own country, do, doing what their country would say was necessary, and their country would be lying, just like ours would. The United States of America has been a bunch of liars for as long as I've been old enough to differentiate a legitimate order from a lie. Well, I don't like the fact that American military personnel have been sent to foreign countries, which was the whole idea behind 9/11. They wanted to start 7 wars in 7 countries, and they did start a couple, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, but that's not that's not kosher with God. God doesn't like that. And God has the upper hand in this. And the United States of America, under Donald John Trump and the military white hats, and there's some people that think that I'm a military white hat, and I think it's very appropriate that they think that, whether it's true or not. It gives me a little bit more clout than I might otherwise have. But I have enough clout to walk into any courtroom in America now after the 1st of October of 2024. We are no longer under maritime or admiralty law. We are under constitutional law. And under constitutional law, I predict with great confidence that President Donald John Trump is going to reopen 9/11 and get further convictions through military tribunals for the people that put on 9/11. And just to repeat how aggressive I am and why I am so aggressive is my own sister, Christine Marcy, was one of the key players in 9/11. And so I disowned her. And I think she's been dealt with. I think she no longer has a pulse. Does that please me? No, but she no longer will be a threat to the United States of America, which is my country. So anyway, Jenny, I sort of got off on a tangent there, but did you want me to say something more about Kurt Weldon and Tucker Carlson other than the fact I would be more than happy to supply them with information because I can do it. I mean, I probably know stuff they don't know, and they might not even have the ability to find out, but I know it because I've been doing this for 24 years and I'm fed up. Why should any person, in this case me, why should I have this emotional burden on my shoulders for 24 years? Should it not have been remedied long ago? Over to you, Jenny.
Absolutely. Long ago is an understatement for sure. Well, it's up to you. We can take some Q&A. I just was wanting you to maybe point out some parts of the interview that you thought were very important uh, with Tucker Carlson and Kurt Weldon. So, like I said, if not, the video, everybody, is on the wall if you want to watch it. But I know we were speaking the other day, and you pointed out a few things. So I wanted to see if you wanted to share that with the audience.
Well, I'm at a disadvantage because I haven't watched it in the last 4 days. I would encourage all your listeners anywhere in the world to watch that interview, knowing that there's going to be follow up interviews with Kurt Weldon and Tucker Carlson. And I'm going to go out on a limb now and not out of pride or ego. I'm just going to say that I think when 9/11 is declassified, I would be very surprised if I was not called as a witness because I can walk into a courtroom and I can answer questions that dishonest attorneys, pardon the redundancy, or dishonest judges, pardon the redundancy, you know, they have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth if I'm under oath and under penalty of perjury, which means if I lie and what I say is proven to be a lie, I can be in big trouble. Um, I'm not afraid of being in big trouble, but there's no way in the world anybody's going to get me to lie about 9/11 because I know more about 9/11 than anyone else of which I'm aware, which is not only a strong comment, it might be considered boastful. I don't mean it that way. It's just the way it is. And the only reason I know so much about 9/11 is my background. Not only did I fly for the airline companies, plural, but I also flew air defense interceptors that are capable of going 1,600 miles an hour and taking out targets that need to be removed. And that's not boastful. It's not macho. It's just true. Over to you, Jenny. Yeah, let's go to Q&A.
You got it. Okay, Field, thank you. And thank you, Field, for sharing that regarding the rubble and that little girl sharing the, putting that sign up. I did not know that. That is absolutely heartbreaking. So thank you for sharing
Oh,
that.
hey, listen, I've got 3 daughters and I've got 3 granddaughters, and I don't want anybody in my family having to hold up a sign that says, my daddy is not garbage. You know, it's enough to make the Marine Corps side of me come out. And, the Marine Corps side of me it's always simmering just under the surface. And it doesn't take much more than that to trigger it. But have you noticed that I haven't used a single dirty word today, Janet?
You've done great. You've done great. I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you. And I'm sort of proud of me too, because it's hard for me not to speak my mind. Uh, but I'm looking in my own mind, and I don't have the photo in front of me, but I got the photo in my mind. And to see a little girl that's probably 4 years old holding up a sign that says, "My daddy is not garbage. If you want to see a Marine turn into a Marine, show me that sign and watch what I do." Over to you, Jenny. Let's go to Q&A.
Can you hear me, Field? Okay,
Yes.
my mic was green, but it showed muted. Okay, yeah, and this is where the American people and the world are going to get really upset when they find out the truth. So, okay, everybody, we're going to go some Q&A. Field typically gives us 90 minutes of his time, so we'll do about 30 minutes of some Q&A. So feel free to raise your hand. I will unmute your mic and call on you. Or if you can't speak, write your comment underneath the comment area, or excuse me, your question underneath the logo on there. It says Field McConnell. So let's see. Joe P., your mic is unmuted. Go ahead and ask Field your question.
Thanks, Jenny. Field, thank you for your bravery and willingness to come out and take that 9/11 whistleblower status and speak the truth. And I've had the opportunity to speak to you and ask you a couple questions on this platform a few times, but I never mentioned the 9/11 specifically, and that's kind of the one big issue that really woke me up and made me um, start to despise that government corporation we had for so long. But thank you for doing that. But the questions I have right now more so is in our current environment and the climate we're in with disclosures, soft disclosures, and things like that coming around. I know in Gitmo there have been prisoners and detainees related to 9/11 and trials happening about 9/11, and it definitely seems like it's beginning to increase within the public, narrative as far as news cycles is concerned, especially with this Tucker Carlson interview. And a lot of the information in there was really good. I did have the opportunity to listen to the entire interview, and I can, you know, appreciate the passion and a level of frustration that representative, I can't think of his name right now, but has, and what he had to go through. And I could only imagine your level of frustration with that. Weldon's representative. Yes. Thank you, Jenny. So, but with that being said, in the uptick and in the conversation regarding 9/11 occurring, and also the Crossfire Hurricane and some of the things becoming declassified that President Trump's done through executive orders, one of the things I can imagine seeing, specifically Crossfire Hurricane, is are there any overlaps? I know George Tenet was CIA director back when 9/11 happened, but between Crossfire Hurricane and the Russia hoax with McCabe, with Comey, with John Brennan, are there any overlaps between the two of those that hopefully, like Juan had suggested, come this summer, maybe we start to get some arrests on those specifically? Is there any overlap that would connect between 9/11 and a lot of those people that were a part of those shenanigans? Were they involved in both behind the scenes a bit? Is there some kind of connection that could make a good soft disclosure that may segue or connect to 9/11 from those type investigations?
Yes, I think there certainly are. And I think that the people that have been very, very dishonest, and when I say very, very dishonest, I'm talking about my own sister, which is my only sibling. I didn't have a brother. I had a sister 2 years older than me, and I am so ashamed of her. But one of her co-conspirators in the Department of Justice was Jamie Gorelick, Gorelick, and she sat on top of the 9/11 Commission, and she doesn't know her ass from third base. Sorry, Jenny, I slipped. She
You're
did.
good.
Go ahead.
You're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Jamie Gorelick is just a liar. And if she doesn't like me saying it, She knows how to find me, and she's got dishonest people in the United States government that are remnants of the Joe Biden and Barack Obama administrations. And, Joe Biden was like a village idiot. And I don't think I'm not trying to criticize idiots. It's just he didn't have much of a brain. He could have played a part in The Wizard of Oz. But Barack Obama, let's talk about that. Is there a human named Barack Hussein Obama? The answer is no. My own sister gave him that name, and she get his real name. In fact, I'm looking out my front yard right now, and I see a silver 1996 Cadillac hearse, and it's got the name Barry Soetoro, Soetoro, and Punahou, Punahou, 79. The person that Americans and people around the world think is named Barack Obama, there's no such entity. His name is Barry Soetoro, and at Punahou School in Honolulu, he was a gay male prostitute. That's truth. That's verifiable. That's not my opinion, and it's not homophobic. So the answer to your question is I think a lot of these things are interrelated. I thought that was a very good question. I hope I do it service before I run out of talking. But I'm just going to ask you, sir, do you remember the name Christopher Steele?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you have any idea where in England he lived?
I'm not aware, but I know he was British intelligence, correct?
Yes, that's right. And he's also a creep. He lived, and he probably still lives, in Farnham, Farnham, the UK. And I was over in the UK, and of course, for a lot of people, especially in America and Canada, most people don't know that the UK consists of four nations, one being England, one being Scotland, one being Northern Ireland, not the Republic of Ireland, which is down south. Up at the north end of Ireland, there's a state called Northern Ireland. And then there's a beautiful country that really owns my heart. And in fact, you can hear my voice break when I think about how special Wales, Wales, Wales. And I just love Wales, and I think I'll be going over there, even though I have a murder threat in the UK. Uh, my wife, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't. My wife, Denise, was from England, and she died 5 years ago, roughly 4.5 actually. And she died while I was tied up in court in Florida by a constitutionally illegitimate governor named Ron DeSantis. Hey, Ron, can you hear my voice? I'm coming. And then a constitutionally ignorant Wisconsin governor named Tony Evers. Tony, I'm right here in Plum City. Come and get it. Yeah, these people just toss the law books into the garbage, and they falsely accused me of something I never did, and I don't care. I mean, I'm going to win this battle, and for a very simple reason, and here it comes. God, capital God, God loves me. God doesn't worry about the governor of Florida or the governor of Wisconsin. They can do whatever they did to me, and God wouldn't interrupt, but God has protected me because I'm alive. And here's the deal. Here's the really on-off switch. When I petitioned a judge whose name was Dan Casey of the 17th District of Florida, I petitioned him for his allowing me to go home and say goodbye to my wife that was terminally ill with thyroid cancer. He said no. Okay, Dan Casey, I got your number, and you're not going to like the book I'm writing called War Bride POW. And I don't give a rat's ass, Dan Casey. You did not allow me to go home to say goodbye to my wife, even though I had a medical professional send you a notarized letter saying that my wife, Denise Irene Clark McConnell, was dying. Okay, you had your chance. Now it's mine. Over to you, sir. Did I answer any of your questions?
You did, and I appreciate it. Mainly it seems like I think 9/11 is probably the most egregious, more modern day attack on our country. I know COVID is it was very fresh, but I think 9/11, in my opinion, is the one terrorist attack that was done by corrupt agents within our own government that actually brings down the house. I think 9/11 brings down the house, but I'm interested to know or see, and it's just out of speculation or curiosity on my part as to how it could be interwoven with what is currently happening. And the only thing that really comes to mind is that a lot of those same players, which obviously when you look at these, corrupt organizations and systems, they usually interconnect with those same players. And I'm assuming, but I just don't know, and you would know better than me, is that there's a lot of the corrupt players that were involved in a lot of Barack Obama and George Bush Jr.'s administration probably had a lot to do with that Crossfire Hurricane and also the Russia hoax, that they pursued on that. And I'm wondering if some of those arrests get interconnected, and then how does the 9/11 really become introduced on the mainstream to the American public? Because I think at this point, the majority of Americans question the validity of what they've been told with 9/11, and that doubt is at a percentage that I think the American public is ready to know the truth about 9/11. And I think 9/11 is what brings down the entire corrupt temple on their head.
I think you're right.
Thank you, Joe.
I am confident you're right. I'd bet my life you were right. And I'd like to do whatever I can do as a private citizen to accelerate the process. I don't think Donald John Trump needs my help, but President Trump, if you need to have a ferocious devil dog, which is what the Japanese used to call U.S. Marines, President Trump, you are the commander in chief. You have the authority to bring any retired Marine officer back to active duty. And if you wanted me to come back on active duty for any purpose, I would do it without accepting any money at all. Just like you, President Donald John Trump, you don't accept any money to serve as the commander in chief. And it's so refreshing to me. And you know my name, President Trump. I don't have to repeat it. But you know me, you know my backbone, you know my skill set, and you know that I'm not going to be dissuaded. I'm going to be on the front lines of this battle until this battle is won, and it has been declared to be won by the U.S., meaning the United States media. And I'm not talking about the mainstream media. That's a dead dog, and it's probably gone away. Let's hope so. But from the grave of the old mainstream media, a new media is going to pop up, and it's going to be responsible. It's going to be honest. It's going to be directed by Donald John Trump. And if there's anything I can do, President Trump, um, you know how to get a hold of me. I'm pretty easy to find. And so I hope I helped answer your question, sir. I certainly I certainly, very much so. I was impressed by the nature of your question. And the answer to your question is we are making progress, we as the United States of America, and under President Donald John Trump, we will not fail. Okay?
Great,
Thank you,
Field. I
Field.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Joe.
God bless you.
All right, Field, I've got 2 more questions here for you. Okay, Mr. Herb, is it Herb or Herb Flood? Your mic is unmuted. Go ahead. Go ahead, Herb. All right, Light, your mic is unmuted. Go ahead and ask Field your question. Push the blue mic in the middle of your screen. Light, L-I-G-H-T, your mic is unmuted. Okay, Fields. So these people aren't responding. So I have one here on the wall for you. It says, Fields, you mentioned George H.W. Bush was the culprit of 9/11. What role did George W. Bush play in this? Thank you. And that's from Cal.
Yeah. Well, I think George W. Bush was just, and I don't want to be quoted. I mean, of course, if it comes out of my mouth, I can be quoted. But I think George W. Bush, the younger President Bush, has been vilified as being somewhat unintelligent. I'm looking right now, this very moment, I'm looking at a model of an F-102 Delta Dagger, and George W. Bush flew those with the Texas Air National Guard, and those airplanes were a delta wing aircraft, which does not fly like a straight wing or a swept wing aircraft. And if he was as unintelligent as so many of his critics have said, he couldn't have flown that airplane without crashing, and yet he did. So I don't think G.W. Bush was unintelligent. I think that George H.W. Bush was evil. E-V-I-L. Now, Jenny, I don't know if you know, I doubt any of your listeners know, but on the evening before 9/11, which would have been September 10th, George H.W. Bush was in the White House, not G.W. Bush. G.W. Bush was in Sarasota, Florida, where he was videotaped reading a goat story, and the book was upside down. Now, Jenny, not to put pressure on you, and I know I already put a little pressure on you, but do you have any idea what it means if a book or a flag is upside down as compared to being a book or flag right side up? Any question? Do you have any knowledge of that, Jenny?
Flag upside down is nation in distress, correct?
Yes. And the word, and this is something that people should write down and Google it later. The word is extremis, E-X-T-R-E-M-I-S. So, if people want to say G.W. Bush was unintelligent, I would respond, well, he knew he knew to hold the book upside down because on the morning of 9/11, he was videotaped with a book upside down, which is the International Maritime sign for I am in extreme danger and I need your help. And President Bush, the younger guy, he was in extreme danger and he did need our help. And I would like to offer my assistance to help him in any way I could to reestablish his place in history, because it was his father, George H.W. Bush, that was the architect of 9/11, not G.W. Bush. And I say that based on the fact that my sister, Christine Marcy, and Hillary Clinton who's actually a Rockefeller. What a bunch of liars. I mean, they change their names like some of us change our undies, although I don't change mine very often because I live by myself. So who's going to know? And I say that tongue in cheek. But George W. Bush held up that goat story that he was reading to some elementary school kids, and he held the book upside down, and it was on national TV. And so if anybody didn't get it when it happened, go back and look. If you go to YouTube, you can probably find it. But George W. Bush was intelligent enough to signal to the world that we were in extreme danger and we needed help. So God bless George W. Bush for doing what he did on the morning of 9/11. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Field. And if there's no more questions, everybody, Field is here with us every 2 weeks. He typically gives us 90 minutes of his time. Field, we have about 10 more minutes. Do you want to speak on anything else before we go?
I'd love to, but do you have, pardon my voice, do you have any subjects that you'd prefer me to talk about?
Well, we just had a hand raised. So real quickly, we've got best press. I'm going to unmute your mic. Go ahead. Why is it everybody raises their hand right when we're getting ready to close out? Okay, best press. Go ahead. Your mic is unmuted.
Jenny, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. From your comment there, Field, I thank you for all the information you've given us. But do you think by any chance, this is just a thought that came to my head, that possibly Bush Jr. was telling the world that we were in distress because he was working with the good guys?
I think it's entirely possible, and unless Jenny corrects me, Jenny, isn't that what I was suggesting? That when he was holding the book upside down, he was telling the world, we are in extreme danger and I need help.
Yes.
Yep, I agree with that. I followed you and I followed Jenny, and I have a lot of things that I know and knowledge. But the one thing that I always said to my mother was, when they supposedly came in and said something to him, he had like a smirk on his face. And I said, that doesn't look like a man who was concerned about us being attacked with these towers going down. But thank you for your help, and thank you for all the knowledge you've given us to open our eyes, because I've been on this journey for 6 years now. My eyes are wide open, and my daughter, who's 18 years old, her eyes are wide open because of all the knowledge we've learned from you guys. So thank you very much.
Well, it's my pleasure, but also, young lady, it's my obligation because, I wish I didn't know what I know because it's such an emotional burden to me, and that's why I cry so easily. But in the meantime, we are winning, and I'm not political. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I don't even vote. I think it's a game. I could be wrong, but I'm not going to play the game. But I think we're in very good shape with President Donald John Trump. And of equal importance is his wife, Melania Trump. And most Americans, and therefore probably most people around the world, don't understand Melania Trump's ancestral surname is Romanoff. So, young lady that I'm talking to, not Jenny, but the lady that has an 18-year-old daughter, did you know that Melania was a Romanoff?
Yes, I have learned that through with all my shows that I've watched with you, because our Mondays, we're always excited to hear what Field has to say. So yes, I knew that because you taught me that.
Well, thanks for being a good student. And yeah, I can't tell anybody anywhere in the world how much respect I have for Melania Trump, knowing that she was a Romanoff. And on a day in 1918, bad Russians killed her grandmother and her grandfather, and bad Russians killed 5 of her 7 there were 7 children, and the bad people killed 5 of them, and only 2 daughters survived. And not only did they kill the Romanov family of 2 parents and 5 children, and this is disgusting, and I hate it, and I don't even like talking about it. But after they murdered those Romanovs, they burned them to the point where they were unrecognizable. And I think that is very, very evil. And so what we're involved in here, collectively, all of us, we are all in a battle of good versus evil. So in a rare moment of optimism, I would just say under Donald John Trump, the United States of America is going to be saved. And if the United States of America can be saved, so can the other 209 nations around the world. I think we're all going to be okay, but it's been a very, very brutal battle, and there's been way too many people injured or killed or terrified. Over to you, young lady.
Amen, Field.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you, best
Thank you
friend.
very much.
Thank you. All right, Rebecca Lee, your mic is unmuted. Then I had one more, but they're gone. Okay, I think I do. Then okay, Rebecca Lee, go ahead, and then Romana will close out with you. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Field, so much. I've been knowing about 9/11 since way long time, too long. Like you said, it's so hard to live in this world knowing what we know and others don't. But my main concern at this point is my son and many other sons and daughters. Whew, sorry.
Oh, don't, it's okay. I cry all the time. Don't
Yeah.
feel bad.
Okay.
Just bare your soul. Go ahead.
Okay. They, jumped in the saddle, thinking John Wayne that went to Iraqi freedom and many other places. And some of them came home, whole or in pieces. But we have all those people still living in this country that have to assimilate this information. And you, of all people, I hope we can put it in people's minds to have some kind of, I don't even know what consideration, thought, plan in mind of how we're going to help that specific category of citizens and veterans. And that's just my thought. I just want to throw that out there to you because I know you've got connections. I know you have plans for Veterans Ranch, and we throw that. I don't know. I feel like I need help to deal with my son who's been in denial. It came to a point where I quit talking to him about the things that I knew because I knew he was just trying to keep it together. So many around him have gone down since the war, at their own hands, how that is. And so anyway, that's my thought. Just your thoughts on that, Phil.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm just going to change your words so that more people can understand what you just said. When you said that many of these young service people have gone down at their own hands, what you mean is they've committed suicide.
Yes.
Yes. Isn't that regrettable? I mean, I'm 75 years old and I'm still alive, and I I'm not capable of suicide, but I could have been, because I've been dealing with this stuff. And I said stuff, Jenny. I didn't say horse shit. Oh, I guess I slipped. Okay, fuck it. I said horse shit. Yeah, it takes a lot of nerve and a lot of stamina and a lot of confidence not to take your own life when you know that you've been lied to, you've been put in a risky place by an illegitimate government and very poor military leaders, past tense. I think that today we've got fairly good military leaders because under Donald John Trump, they're weeding out the weak people. And notice I didn't say something there, Jenny. I thought about saying weak something else, but I didn't say that because it doesn't advance the argument. The argument is it is a national tragedy and embarrassment that so many veterans are committing suicide. And I don't have the answer to that. If I did, I would put it into action. But maybe part of the answer is for the legitimate leaders of our military, do not let your young, airmen, soldiers, Marines, Air Force people. That was airmen, isn't it? Okay. Army. Anyway, let's not let our young people, male or female, serving the United States of America get so discouraged that they feel the only way they can escape is through suicide. Um, I don't have the number on the tip of my tongue right now, but I think it's around 20 veterans a day commit suicide. And Jenny, if you have a better number, or if anyone in the chat room has a better number, please let me know and I'll update my thinking. But I think that, well, it's not, I think. When I got out of high school at age 17, I went into the Navy at the Naval Academy at Annapolis. Then I went in the Marine Corps. And then I loved the Marine Corps. I just didn't like the way I was being treated by some of the leaders who had no leadership, which I found to be a conundrum. If you don't have any leadership skills, why are you in a leadership position? Because you're going to mislead all the people under your command, and you're going to discourage those people, and they are not going to have faith in the branch of service in which they are serving. And I've had that experience, and yet I survived, and I spent 26 years in the military, and I'm quite happy with what I did and what I was capable of doing. And that is why I got in a position why I could understand exactly what happened on 9/11. And I thank God and I thank Jenny for allowing me this opportunity to piggyback on Tucker Carlson and Representative Kurt Weldon, because they've opened the argument. And, I've thrown my voice out there in support of them. And I couldn't be more proud of any Americans today than I am of Tucker Carlson and Kurt Weldon for being people that are not going to just turn the other cheek and let 9/11 be misunderstood. And I think that 9/11 is going to be very well understood very quickly. And a big part of that, in addition to Kurt Weldon and Tucker Carlson, is President Donald John Trump and his wife Melania, who is a Romanov. Over to you.
Thank you, Field. And with that, everybody, Field is with us every week. So, Field, we'll bring back here on Monday, everybody. It is Friday, but we'll bring him back on Monday because that's his regular time scheduled. And my scheduling's been a little bit off because of my move. So, with that, everybody, look for the show lineup. I am scheduling some shows next week. Field and John, let's see, we're going to have Field, John Baxter, and Derek will be on Monday because I couldn't do Derek on Monday this past week because I didn't have internet. And then so far we've got Silk and Alpha Warrior coming on Wednesday, trying to get Josh Reed over here as well. And then Rubber Duck. Rubber Duck is going to be coming back. So his name is Mike, but I call him Rubber Duck because that's his I don't know, handle over there on X, and that's what he's gone by for quite some time. So, with that, everybody, have a great weekend. Have a happy Easter. Don't forget what Good Friday is all about, everybody. Be thanking our Lord in heaven and Jesus for all of his sacrifices. And God bless you all. Stay in the faith, everybody. Head on a swivel. Take the big, small, medium wins that we are winning, because we're winning out there, everybody. We are winning, winning, winning. Stay out of the noise. It is noise. With that, Field, we'll see you on Monday.
God bless you, Jenny. I'll be here.
All right, we'll be here too. So we'll talk to you guys on Monday, and have a great weekend, everybody. God bless. Take care.
Happy Easter. Bye-bye.